Hey guys, we're back with another video, and I got a pretty basic shuttle setup here. We're playing KSP, and I got a mic now, so we can do voiceover on the computer. Pretty basic shuttle, just kind of a recreation of the first one. I did this real quick, took 10 minutes. You can see here I'm a little shaky at flying it. It's not, I would say, the most stable thing in the world, but it gets the job done. You can see here we're going up to a low orbit. And we're actually going to be doing two of these launches. So this has half the payload, and then there will be another one with the other half, and we'll be putting it together in orbit and then sending it to its destination. So you can see me here just setting up the maneuver node real quick, trying to get a decently circular orbit. See there's some issues with that, and we'll have to correct for it in the end, but for now it's going okay. We also picked up a slight inclination, which isn't a huge issue. I can correct for it in a little bit, but it is something to note. We're doing our final burn here, and unexpectedly the shuttle just got wobblier and wobblier as it went on, doing this weird shaking thing. I just had to completely turn it off, and then I just had to completely separate from the tank at all because I just couldn't correct fast enough to finish the burn. We actually end up going way too far here. If you'll see, our apoapsis starts to shoot up, and our periapsis remains pretty much the same. So we're going to have to circularize again. I'm setting up that maneuver node here. But we're actually, you can see the shuttle all put together here. We're opening the cargo bay there, and you can see payload number one. It's just a little tug module, really just an engine and some fuel tanks and some solar panels. It has its own probe core, so it can move on its own a little bit. I thought that would be helpful for docking. A little bit of a strange thing here, though. It was supposed to have some small tanks. I have Tweakscale installed in this, but it just didn't work. They didn't show up, so I have no idea what happened to those. An interesting thing that happened was that our orbit lined up so that we could just head straight back down. We haven't even made really a full orbit yet, so we can just go straight back down. We do have to do a little bit of correction for that inclination like I mentioned earlier, but other than that small burn, we should be all good. And you can see here we're doing that now. It's a pretty standard burn. So once we correct for that, though, I do make a little bit of a mistake here. I burn a little bit too much backwards, and we don't actually have enough fuel to correct for it. I reloaded a quick save and tried a few times, but I just used too much fuel there. So we're going to come down a little bit short, but overall not too bad, considering this is just a way to fly. One thing I did not expect from this craft is just how well it can glide. I made this thing in about 5 minutes, so I did not expect much from it in terms of gliding performance. We can see here we are still maintaining a pretty high altitude, even though it is a little slow. It does have a lot of drag, I've noticed, so you can see, but when we actually get to the point here where we're landing, where we're getting pretty close to it now, the stall speed on this thing is unbelievably low. I actually end up landing here at really only about 50 meters per second. We're actually below that when we finally do land. But here we are, we're coming to a stop, and it's time for the next launch. And here it is, just another shuttle. You can see this one I have a little bit better piloting skills with this one. I do remember to disable the flaps this time, which was, I think, the problem before. We can see here just standard ascent. I do make a mistake there. We accidentally broke off all the wings, so I guess we'll have to mount a rescue mission for the crew of this shuttle, or maybe it's Bob. Bob's the engineer. Maybe Bob can whip something up in orbit to save them. I don't know. We'll have to see. You'll have to check out the next video, of course, because that's where that will be. Right. We can see here we're just going back into orbit. Again, there is a little bit of inclination. Not quite sure how that happened, but, it did. So we're going here, and we are going around. We're just trying to meet up with that other piece of cargo that we left. We have to do a little bit of inclination adjustment, a little bit of orbital maneuvers here. Pretty standard stuff, all in all, for, a KSP video. I did actually forget to decouple that tank to the point where it would crash into the planet. As of now, it's just going to go kind of really low into the atmosphere and then come back up because of how KSP physics work. But I can just de-orbit that some other time. And here I'm trying to get the maneuver with the other part here, seeing how far into the future we have to go. And you see I can get a pretty close encounter here. We do have a little bit of trouble with the shuttle itself, which means I have to get a second one in just a second. You'll be able to see that. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the mission. So what we're going to be doing is we are, of course, assembling a little convoy kind of thing in orbit, and then that convoy will be sent over to Duna, where we'll be sending some other things in the future, kind of in the general area of what we're sending today. This is kind of just a preliminary, you could say, exploratory mission from the Kerbals. You can see here we actually are dipping into the atmosphere now. We'll get around, I'll give it a quick burst beforehand, just to make sure that we're going the right direction, and just time warping ahead here till we get to that point. Fairly simple orbital maneuvering here. The shuttle is very unstable though with the engines, since the wings are gone. Those really had a lot of mass and they were kind of balancing it out with the other parts. So I actually do this burn here completely with RCS. We have a lot of RCS fuel. The shuttle's a little overbuilt in my opinion. There's no way you would ever use that much RCS, but just in case. But we're coming up on our target here, just point towards it, burn, slow down, do that over and over again until we get close enough. I do decide here though I do have some maneuvering thrusters on our actual payload, because we're actually going to be doing a little bit of orbital reassembly. It's all kind of flat packed at the moment. We need to reorganize so that it makes a little more sense. And I'm sorry that this part is so dark. I forgot to enable one of the particular settings. You'll see actually when I do enable it here in a few minutes. But it's actually very dark. But I do think one nice thing is how nice all these parts look. I am using the Restock mod currently, which just makes parts look really, really nice. Most of them anyway. And I'll put a full mod list in the description. There's only like 4, but I'll put it down there in case anyone's curious. I don't think Scatterer is working. That is one of the other ones, because as you might see in this video, all of the terrain and the planets really look horrible in my opinion. They do not look good at all. I think there might be an issue with Scatterer, or maybe my settings are wrong. This is actually a fresh install, and that's why some of the settings might be incorrect at the moment. And here I considered just deorbiting the shuttle for fun, but I thought maybe we should actually save them. Valentina and I think Bob was the one that was left there. Shouldn't really be, it was Bill. Look at that. But anyway, I figured Valentina and Bill probably should be saved. But we're doing a quick inclination adjustment here, and we actually can get a good little view at our entire little, convoy here. And I did forget to mention, we did do the orbital reassembly, which was just turning that rover onto its side so that it was correctly facing with the docking port on top. We're just time warping ahead here to get to our Duna encounter and a little bit more. But while this is burning, let me talk. Here's where I changed the setting actually. You can see it's much brighter now. We can talk about it. But here I'll go through the individual parts of the thing. So we have at the bottom there our main fuel tank. And then right above that is a small satellite that is going to go in what I originally thought was going to be Duna orbit, but there were some changes. You'll see about that in a second. Next down the list is a secondary small fuel tank. The problem was when I originally assembled it, there was one assembly before actual filming. I found that I didn't quite have enough delta V, so I did add that extra fuel tank just to increase our margins a little bit. Then the next thing is the actual landing thing. It's that kind of triangle thing right below the rover, and it has a few parachutes on it that kind of flip out. I thought that might look cool. And then right below that obviously is our rover, which is just jam-packed of fun little things. I actually talked right over our whole trajectory to Duna with our some minor course corrections, but here we are going into orbit, and we're going to be pretty much I don't really care where we land, to be honest. We're going to be pretty much going straight down after this. Interesting here, though, we are actually using the RCS. This took much longer than it's going to look like here. This is sped up 7 times faster than real life, and then I even put it into 4 times time warp, and it's still a very long sequence in the video. You can see here we actually ran out of RCS fuel and we're just going down. I will end up decoupling that extra large fuel tank. Really the only reason we brought it with us is to just get rid of it. I mean, it's basically space junk now. We don't want any debris. I'm going for as little debris as possible in pretty much all of my videos here. And you see here we're just turning that around, and I flipped that up to maybe increase drag a little bit. You can see there we're going a little bit faster than I would like to. And my parachutes don't seem to be working. I have to mess around with them quite a bit to get them to land here. But as you can see, they finally do all completely fan out, put down that little part, and go through the ground. And it's a little rocky, it's a little bumpy, a bit of a landing. You can see here, I'm looking around, I had deploy the solar panels, and then we're going to go over and look at these rocks here. I can put out my little scanning arm, and see, no science. This is a sandbox save, so no actual science, but you know, it's still fun to just kind of activate it. And I thought this was the top of the hill. I was going to go up here, plant the flag, but it turns out that this was incorrect. There's still more hill above there, so I have to go up to the top of this hill as well. I don't even think I get to the top. I eventually just got tired of doing it. But you can see here we're looking at, we have a survey unit, and then we are going out to plant our little flag. See Bob there putting his little flag, Duna Rover, how nice. Another thing is though, he has a little trouble getting back into the vehicle here. You see, I have to kind of fold that down, and we just kind of glitch through it by jumping. I might have to bring a ladder over to fix that. But we are not done yet. We still have that satellite in low orbit. Now this part is significantly, it's sped up significantly more than the last clip you were just watching. And that's simply because I did not exactly know what to do with this. Once I got to Duna, I realized that Ike is in the way of a geostationary orbit, which is what I was planning to do. Position this right above the rover, and we'd have constant communication with the KSC, you know, at least mostly constant. But once we got over to Ike, I realized, no, that won't work because, well, Ike's in the way. So what I ended up doing was just putting it in orbit around Ike. We have pretty consistent connection, but it took me a little bit to figure out that's what I was going to do. I try a few things here. I think, okay, well, I'll just go into a polar orbit. But then I'm like, no, we're still interacting with Ike because of our, you know, we have to cross it at some point. And I tried just going really inclined. No, that doesn't work. Eventually here I realized, oh, wait a minute. I can just go into orbit of Ike, because that's what we're doing now. It's a good thing I brought that extra tank in the end, because this ended up taking a lot more delta V than I thought it was going to take. And we even accidentally burned backwards, and I almost went into the atmosphere for a little bit. So that was, you know, it's a good thing we had that extra delta V. What did I end up going for here is going into a polar orbit of Ike. I figured that would give us pretty good coverage of our rover while still being fairly quick and easy to set up. I mean, this isn't anything serious. I'm sure, you know, if this series continues, there will be an actual official, you know, satellite ring around Duna, and we won't even have to worry about this. But you can see here I'm just circularizing our orbit now, and we're actually coming up to the end of the video here pretty soon, guys. So just real quick, I want to thank you all for watching. I know I've been absent a little bit, so I'm sure this won't get great views. But I want to make sure, you know, whoever does watch this, make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.